All right, welcome in everybody to our deep dive. And today we're going to be looking at Shopify dropshipping. More specifically, we're going to be looking at this fascinating case study by Sara Finance. She did this 10-day challenge and documented it all on YouTube. And let me tell you, she set a pretty ambitious goal for herself, aiming for $10,000 in revenue. And we're going to find out, did she pull it off? What worked? What didn't work? What can you learn from her experience, whether you're thinking of launching your own e-commerce business, or maybe you're just curious about this whole drop shipping thing?
Yeah, the cool thing about Sarah's story is that, it shows how drop shipping works in the real world, not just in theory. So we get to see her, making decisions, facing challenges, and we can analyze the results that she got.
Exactly. And for anyone who's not familiar with dropshipping, it's essentially selling products online, but you don't actually have to hold any inventory yourself. So you're kind of like the connector between the customer and the products. And then you have a third-party supplier who handles storing and shipping everything. So Sarah's first step was to focus on product selection. And she ended up using a dropshipping supplier called USA Drop to help her find, as she calls it, a winning product, something that has high demand. And she settled on this portable LED makeup box, which, sounds like a pretty good choice to me.
Yeah, product research is absolutely essential when it comes to drop shipping. It's not just about picking something that you think is cool. You really have to understand your audience, what's trending, identify a product that solves a problem, and ideally has some decent profit margins. And, having suppliers like USA Drop out there is really helpful because they offer a selection of products that are already curated. And they handle all of that fulfillment stuff, so you don't have to worry about storing and shipping everything yourself.
Yeah. Makes total sense. So she's got her product. What does she do next? Well, she gets herself a free Shopify trial to build her store. And she really puts a lot of emphasis on making it look professional and on brand, which, is pretty important when you're trying to build trust with customers, right?
Yeah, definitely. A website that looks, kind of janky can really be an instant turnoff for people.
Yep.
So having that professional, user-friendly design, that can really, build credibility and make people more likely to buy from you.
Now, this is where it gets really strategic because Sarah decides to use a couple of key Shopify apps to really maximize her sales potential. First up, she uses this app called Upcart. And this app lets her create a free shipping bar on her website. Those things that encourage you to spend a little bit more to get free shipping.
Yeah, that's such a classic tactic. It definitely works.
Just a genius.
Yeah, it kind of taps into consumer psychology.
Right.
People want to feel like they're getting a good deal. And it creates that sense of urgency to spend just a little bit more.
Yep. And the cool thing about Upcart is that it also lets her offer upsells, so it'll suggest an additional product at checkout. Really smart, right? But wait, there's more. She also uses this other app called Aftersale, which allows her to present a post-purchase upsell offer. So after someone has already bought something, she can entice them with another related product. Talk about maximizing every sale.
Yeah, so she's basically optimizing that whole sales funnel every step of the way.
Yeah.
From getting people to her site to, encouraging them to spend more. It's all very deliberate, and it's clearly working.
Okay, so the store is set up, but how are people going to actually find it? So Sarah decides to leverage a bunch of platforms: TikTok, Instagram Reels, Pinterest, even YouTube Shorts.
It's smart. Each of those platforms has a different audience, so you got to tailor your content accordingly.
Yeah, and since she only had 10 days for this challenge, she opted to repurpose existing viral content. Of course, giving credit to the original creators, it's a pretty practical way to get content out there fast, without having to start from scratch. But on TikTok, Sarah had a very specific strategy. She called it a TikTok hack. And her belief is that if you post a bunch of those super viral-worthy videos, in the first hour of creating a brand new account, that can really help capitalize on TikTok's algorithm.
Interesting. Yeah, the TikTok algorithm is known for identifying and promoting content that's already getting a lot of engagement.
Right.
So the idea is that if you can capture people's attention early on, you can sort of ride that wave of virality.
So the question is, did this hack work? Well, it turned out that TikTok was, by far, her most successful platform. One of her videos even got over 100,000 views.
Wow. Yeah, that just shows the power of understanding those algorithms.
Right.
So posting consistently in that first hour, tapping into existing trends, it all helps.
Yeah. And it also highlights the importance of choosing the right platforms and tailoring your content.
For sure.
Now, Instagram Reels did okay for her, but Pinterest and YouTube Shorts, not so much. So the big question on everyone's mind is, did Sarah hit that ambitious $10,000 goal? Drum roll, please.
Yeah. Well, she didn't quite hit 10,000, but in just 10 days, She generated $815.81.
Oh, not bad at all.
And all without spending any money on ads.
That's pretty impressive. And she attributes the success to a few things. That viral TikTok content that we talked about, choosing a slightly higher priced product, and of course, all the strategic upsells that she implemented.
It really goes to show, that with the right product, the right pricing, and a solid marketing strategy, you can really generate revenue quickly, even without a big ad budget.
Exactly. But revenue is only part of the story, right? What about the bottom line profit? So after deducting all her expenses, things like Shopify fees, PayPal fees, and product costs, her profit came in at $496.18.
Not bad at all.
Yeah, so that's a profit margin of over 50%. Pretty impressive for just 10 days of work. So what can we really learn from Sarah's dropshipping challenge? Does this prove that anyone can build a profitable business this quickly? Well, it's what we're going to be diving into in the next part of our deep dive, so stay tuned. All right, so we've seen the potential upside of Sarah's little 10-day experiment here. I mean, a 50% profit margin, that's pretty enticing. But let's be realistic, is it really that easy?
Well, like with any business, dropshipping definitely has its own set of challenges and risks that you got to consider. And one of the biggest ones is finding a reliable supplier. Sarah seems to have had a good experience with USA Drop, but that's not always guaranteed.
Okay, so what can go wrong with a supplier? Like, it seems like they're just kind of in the background handling the logistics.
Yeah, but you got to remember, you're essentially putting a critical part of your business in their hands. They're the ones getting the product to the customer. And if they're unreliable, that can cause all sorts of problems like slow shipping times, damaged products, inventory issues, you name it.
Oof, that sounds like a nightmare, especially if you're trying to build a good reputation.
Exactly. Unhappy customers are not going to help your business grow.
Mm.
And even if you do find a great supplier, there's still the issue of competition. Dropshipping is pretty easy to get into, which means the market can be super crowded.
So it's not as simple as just like throwing up a Shopify store and watching the money roll in.
Uh-huh. I wish it were that easy.
Yeah.
No, you really got to find a way to stand out, whether that's through, unique products, exceptional customer service, maybe a really strong brand identity, or some combination of all of those things.
Right, you got to give people a reason to choose your store over all the others out there. And we talked about how Sarah used social media algorithms to her advantage, especially on TikTok. But is that something you can rely on long term?
That's a tough one. Algorithms are constantly changing, so what works today might not work tomorrow. You have to be adaptable and stay on top of those changes. Be willing to experiment and try new things.
So it's not a passive income stream, that's for sure. It takes work and effort and a willingness to, keep learning. Okay, so let's say someone's listening to this and they're thinking, dropshipping sounds interesting, but where do I even begin? What advice would you give them?
The most important thing is to do your research. Don't just jump in blind. Take some time to understand how dropshipping actually works, the pros and cons, and all the steps involved in setting up and running a successful store.
That's solid advice. Knowledge is power, as they say.
Yeah.
Are there any good resources out there for people who want to learn more about dropshipping?
Oh yeah, there are tons. You can find so much information online, blog posts, articles, courses, YouTube channels, you name it. There are people out there like Sara Finance who are sharing their experiences and giving practical tips.
So find someone who's already done it and learn from them.
Exactly. Learn from their successes, but also their mistakes. That can save you a lot of time and headaches down the road.
And when you're ready to get started, what would you recommend?
I always say, start small. You don't need to invest a ton of money up front. Remember, Sarah started with $0. You can use a free Shopify trial, experiment with different products and marketing strategies, and see what works best for you.
It's all about taking those first steps and getting some experience.
Yeah.
But it's still a business, right? So you can't just treat it like a hobby.
Definitely not. You need a plan, some realistic goals, and you got to be willing to put in the work. Success doesn't happen overnight.
Sounds like patience and persistence are key. We've talked about suppliers and marketing and all that, but is there anything else that people should keep in mind before diving into dropshipping? Okay, so we've covered the potential rewards, the risks, but what about the actual skills and resources someone would need to be successful with dropshipping? It seems like there's a lot involved.
Yeah, there are a lot of moving parts, for sure. It's definitely more than just finding a product and putting up a website. You really need a good understanding of those e-commerce fundamentals, like how online marketplaces work, how to manage your online store, process payments, handle all the shipping and logistics.
Right. So even though platforms like Shopify make it really easy to build a store, you still got to understand what's going on behind the scenes to troubleshoot any issues and make sure things are running smoothly.
Exactly. And then there's the whole marketing side of things. We talked about social media, but that's really just the tip of the iceberg. A successful drop shipper needs to be, savvy with digital marketing in general.
Okay, so what does that actually involve? Break it down for me.
Well, you got to think about SEO,
Hmm.
email marketing,
Hmm.
creating content that people actually want to see,
Hmm.
and maybe even exploring paid advertising, things like that.
Wow. That's a lot to learn. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed just thinking about it.
Haha. It can definitely feel like a lot at first.
Are there any resources you recommend for, someone who wants to learn more about all this stuff?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There are tons of resources out there, especially online. You can find free courses and tutorials on YouTube, Skillshare, Coursera, all sorts of places. And if you're looking for something more structured, you can always invest in a paid course or program.
So investing in your education is really important, huh?
Definitely. Having that knowledge and those skills can make all the difference.
Makes sense. So what about the more practical stuff? What other resources would you recommend for someone who's serious about dropshipping?
Well, first things first, you need the basics, right? A reliable laptop and a stable internet connection are non-negotiable. You're going to be spending a lot of time online, managing your store, researching products, talking to suppliers.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about like tools and software? Are there any specific things that can make a dropshipper's life easier?
Oh, for sure. Besides Shopify, there's a whole world of tools out there that can streamline your operations, automate tasks, help you analyze data, all sorts of things.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, there are tools for product research. Remember, Sarah used USA Drop to help her find winning products. There are tools for email marketing, social media scheduling, managing customer relationships. You can find tools for pretty much anything you need.
Sounds like having the right tech stack can really give you an advantage. But even with all the best tools in the world, you still got to actually use them, right?
Totally. And that's where time management and organization come in. Especially when you're first starting out, it can be really easy to get overwhelmed.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Dropshipping takes a lot of work, a lot of dedication.
So it's not just about having the right skills and tools, it's also about having the right mindset.
Exactly. You
Okay.
got to be persistent. You got to be willing to put in the effort. You got to be passionate.
If you had to leave our listeners with one key takeaway from all of this, what would it be?
Hmm. I would say that dropshipping is a really unique opportunity to get into the e-commerce world. You can start with very little investment. You have a lot of flexibility, but you got to approach it as a business, not some get-rich-quick scheme.
Right, so invest in yourself, build a strong network, and never stop learning.
Absolutely. And always consider the ethical implications of your business decisions. That's important too.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. From the basics of dropshipping to all the skills and resources you need to be successful. But remember, the journey doesn't end here.
That's right. The world of e-commerce is always changing, so you got to stay curious.
If you want to learn more from Sarah's experience, definitely check out her YouTube channel. And do your own research. There's so much information out there.
Yeah, and who knows, maybe you'll be sharing your own dropshipping success story someday.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Shopify dropshipping. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible online.